Howdy, howdy, and welcome back to another Workshop Wednesday. This time it's What's New is our category for the week, and we're going to cover the updates and features that have been released in June of 2020. Of course, if this is your first workshop, welcome. My name is Chris Mercer. I actually do go by Mercer, and I'm the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io. And whether you found us through the many podcasts and talks that we have given, always looking for more podcasts, by the way, so you can go to our site and find out ways to get your podcast on there. I'd love to be a guest for you. Maybe you come through Digital Marketer or CXL Institute or Social Media Examiner or the other countless places on the internet where we have helped people out, or maybe, just maybe, you're already an existing member of measurementmarketing.io. Love to have you back. Either way, however you found us, appreciate you being here. Our job is to help people just like you learn how to use all these fun tools. And of course, we use the framework for that. Now, really, 5 key stages. We help put the training in context for today's training. There is planning, where you figure out what questions you're trying to answer. There is the building, where you actually start collecting all the information so you can get those answers. There is the reporting, where, of course, you display the answers now so you can actually see the end results of what you're looking to collect. Then you start to use those to forecast your near future. And finally, you optimize, because you're going to measure against what your forecasts are, so you know exactly what's working and what's not. Those are the 5 pillars. Now, with the training today, some of the updates we're going to cover are going to affect some of these. Make sure you pay attention. With the training, we focus on just one thing, though. So especially if you're new to this, it is very easy to get overwhelmed with so much stuff that these tools do. Maybe you're not even using Tag Manager. Then don't worry about the Tag Manager one. Just focus on the Google Analytics one. Or maybe you're not using the Google Analytics part that gets updated. Don't worry about it. Just know that it's a thing. You don't have to worry about it. Just take the one thing that you can actually play with. Chances are it'll be the Data Studio stuff. But just take that one thing, practice it. Then you come back, watch this workshop later. You'll pick up another one thing. That is the concept. And that's how you learn stuff without getting overwhelmed and frustrated by it all. All right, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? What's new? Updates and features released in June 2020. Now, as we always do with these, we're going to dive right in, and we're going to start with Tag Manager. Now, Tag Manager had a couple of technical things that were updated and a couple of minor things, but I want to point these out. So the technical stuff was API. So if you are using the APIs, or your development team is using the APIs, there were APIs that affect the templates, so you can get into those a little bit. There are also some APIs around the JSON stuff. So, take a look at those. I know Simo Ahava, I am positive he's out there already way ahead of the curve when it comes to that stuff, because he's tricking this things all the time. By the way, if you're not following Simo and you use Tag Manager in any way, shape, or form, simoahava.com is a fantastic resource. It does get a little technical, but he makes this thing do backflips, so keep that in mind. All right. So that was pretty much it on the super technical end. Now, there was some cosmetic changes that came out, what they call UI enhancements. So the way that was really in how things look. And the biggest place I want to point this out was something that you see Tag Manager doing this sometimes. I'm going to go in, we're going to create a new trigger here. And this happened in these type of triggers, like scroll and video. You would come in and they have this little enable trigger on. This was an update a long time ago where they did this. But what was interesting about it is they had DOM ready, which, if you've used Tag Manager, you know what that is. Then they window loaded, you know what that is. But then they had this container load. And in Tag Manager, you're used to seeing page load. And all of a sudden it was called container load here. But it was technically the same event. That's how everyone knew this GTM.js is really when the script first gets loaded. That's all that means. So we saw this here and we thought, I wonder if they're eventually going to start changing the terminology. Instead of calling it page load, they'll call it container load. Guess where we are today. So if you go to preview now, and you've probably already noticed this, hopefully, because you're already using preview. But if you come in and you go to preview mode, and then we go and we actually show what that looks like, if we do this little preview on our fancy demo site here, you'll notice Tag Manager preview quickly looks different. Container loaded is what used to be called page loaded. So if that's freaking you out, you're like, man, where's my page load container? And do my all trigger, my all pages triggers, do they still work? Yes. Nothing's technically changed. Just a label has changed. The technical definition of container loaded, if you go into your variables, you'll see is this GTM.js. So that stayed the same. It just used to be called page loaded. Now it's called container loaded. The other thing, and this is interesting to me because this lets me think maybe they're going to let us do comments in some of this stuff. But this has a little comment section. It's like, oh, what is this? It's a built-in trigger. This is a built-in trigger. This is a built-in trigger. So why would they only do it for these 3 and not for anything else? Maybe, and I do not know this, just a theory, and I could totally be wrong. But it would be cool if Google allowed Tag Manager people, such as me, such as you, to come through here and be able to leave little notes as to what these are for and what these mean, just to remember it, so you can see it. So you can kind of hover over the thing that you did and see a little note. So hopefully there was some functionality for that, because clearly, well, let's say there is functionality for it because we can see it here. Hopefully they allow us to do it. So I think maybe this will be something that will eventually start to improve the UI, because you can see the story of what these mean and put little comments in. I think that would be awesome. Again, that's not available today as far as I know, but it does bode well. The big change was this container loaded, everything called container loaded. So again, all that was the original page loaded thing. That's it. It just means when the container script is activated, when it actually loads up in the browser window. That's all this is for. So that was really it. That was all it came down to Tag Manager. Now, there was some stuff with Google Analytics, as is going to be the trend. It's not in the legacy version of Analytics. I know if you're thinking, oh my God, your Analytics looks totally different than mine. It's because this is the new and improved, right? This is the new hotness when it comes to Google Analytics. This is Google Analytics app and web. This is not something you have to be using on a daily basis. I do think absolutely you should be going through it and be getting used to it. We've already got a win course on it, and it's already changed a little bit from that course. This is a course we knew we'd have to create like 3 times this year. But this is the new one. So if you haven't seen App and Web Analytics, it's time to get involved. Again, at zero chance you're going to use it to guide your business. I think right now for most people watching this, right? I don't think there's a chance that you're really using it on a daily basis, but you will be using this eventually. So the sooner you kind of get the learning curve up and running, and it's an entirely new analytics platform. So you set it up in parallel to your existing analytics. Coming through here again, for those that are members, just go into your Win Courses section. You'll see Win Google Analytics App and Web, and it'll talk about how to actually get it set up. All of those lessons still apply. And then you can kind of at least get some basics. That's all we're doing right now. We're not using this to guide our marketing in a daily basis at all. But we're back here going, okay, what new changes are coming out? And it's going to be very different a year from now, because they are constantly updating stuff, including adding things in like conversions reports as they're coming up, that are coming through, where they can now do comparisons. So it's kind of like segments. And now you can do secondary dimensions, which now look like this. They do the little plus sign. This is a secondary dimension. So those things are rolling out. And this was the update, actually. They weren't available until recently on the conversions reports. Now they were available in some other reports. And this will take some getting used to. This will take you some time to wrap your head around, I promise you, because it's a completely different interface, and it's a completely different way of thinking about analytics. And that's why I say, most of these workshops where we cover these, where I say, here's the new changes to this particular platform. You don't need to be using this to guide your business. Don't worry about that. But you do need to start practicing riding the bike a little bit, just so when the time comes and you do need to ramp up into this, which will happen. It will happen eventually. Maybe, probably not this year. I'd practically say guaranteed not this year. But maybe next year you start using this thing a little bit, because this thing can do some cool stuff. It's just not quite officially cooked for most of us yet. Some very large enterprises probably get a lot of good out of this right now. I think most of the small businesses, which of course is who works with us at measurementmarketing.io and learns from us, you're probably not needing this sort of robustness yet, but you will be able to do some cool stuff with it. And it's getting easier and easier to use. In the beginning, Google's products are always super technical and kind of geeky, and they're made for a certain crowd that can handle that, not in a bad way, not in a derogatory way. They're just more used to that. And then they sort of simplify things as they find out what's working and what's not, and it gets easier and easier to use. They did it with Tag Manager. They did it with the original analytics. They are going to do it with this one too, but you do need to start setting this stuff up and start playing with it a little bit if you haven't already, because this is where all the updates are coming from. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on those in future update workshops as well. Finally, for the win, let's go into Data Studio. Now I'm going to bring up, I believe I have a little workshop report somewhere around here. There we go. So let's talk about Data Studio for the win. Team Data Studio, man, just cranking out the changes. So a few things. One is the migration is still in process. So originally this was built on the Google Drive interface, which is kind of where the sharing was all sort of Google Drive-ish. And then it started migrating off. Now, if you've used a regular Google account, like a regular Gmail account or something for Data Studio, you've already been migrated. But for the rest of us who are using Google Suite, this is the thing you pay for as a company, and you have a Google Suite email, that migration is still in process and is happening now. So you might see a few changes back here. The biggest one is that you won't be able to access your Data Studio reports in Google Drive anymore. So just keep that in mind. That'll be the biggest change. It doesn't mean they're going to disappear, just not available through Drive. So at least that's what my current understanding is. You'll still be able to share permissions and everything else. It's just that will happen in the Google admin interface. So if you're an admin to your Google Suite, you can share with other companies, and you can share with, so if you've done this for a client, you want all that client's emails to have access to it, you can do things like that. So you'll be able to share it with other people and everything like that. To my knowledge, you will not be able to yet transfer ownership. But we'll have to see when that migration is out if that's even a possibility. But again, worst case, somebody can copy the report and you can connect the dots and they would be the official owner of it. But anyway, so that's currently in progress. Probably nothing that's going to directly impact you, but wanted you to be aware of it. Now, the other stuff that was coming through is that I think would be kind of something that's kind of interesting here is optional metrics. So we have optional metrics that we can add and pull. Actually, I take that back. That's not the one I wanted to show you. This is not it. Forgive me. I want to come through and we're going to do filters. So the page itself, let me go ahead and edit this. I want to show you. So this table itself right now had this little optional metrics thing that's there. And so this is one of those updates that came out a little while back. Let me click on it so you can edit it here. Go, and then we go to the data tab, and then where is our optional? There's optional metrics turned on. So with optional metrics turned on, you can add and remove metrics that you can let the user do that, which is what we did here. So this is a previous update. In a table or a chart or anything like that. In fact, I'm not going to keep it here. So let's keep it in this one. The difference is, the update is, there is a new thing that are filters that you can put on. So, but you can only do optional metric or these things called metric sliders. So if you turn off optional metrics, you now see metric sliders. So you click on metric sliders. Now I have metric sliders there. The icon is slightly different. So if I go back to view, this is still pretty cool though. I go back to view, I can click on this. Now I have sliders for the metrics I have access to. So page views, and I can say, well, I just want to see page views from here. And I just want to see, user counts of this or whatever. And then this table chart automatically filters for what I did as a user, which is pretty neat. Like, I think that's really cool. I like the idea of the optometrics. I just haven't used them all that much because most people, let's face it, most of your clients are not adding data. They're just trying to simplify stuff, and this helps them to simplify it. So I like this idea of the filters. You can come up here and the user can do this as they go through. And of course you can edit, and turn that off if you need to. But that's where you turn it on and you turn it off in the edit section. It's in the data section of the chart, and it's only one or the other. So you'll notice if I'm looking right now and I want to say, I want to go ahead and put on those optional metrics, I can't. It doesn't even show up. That's because I have metric sliders turned on. As soon as you turn it off, I have optional metrics. If I turn on optional metrics, the other one disappears. So that I'm not so keen on in terms of the user interface, because you might think, I don't have those as an option. You just got to turn this off and you'll see both. So you have one or the other. You cannot do both. So keep that in mind. I'm going to keep them both turned off now just to remind myself that, hey, we've got them. But that's it. That's what metric sliders are. So pretty cool, pretty easy to use, pretty easy to turn on. And I think that's kind of interesting. There is something else I wanted to let you see. So we're going to turn this on here, come in here. And this, I think, is something else you will also use. And then I'm going to end with something ever so geeky. But this one to let you see it. So this is reference lines, and they all have reference lines. So if I have a certain goal line, think goal. So you could always do trend lines. You can always add trend lines into bar charts and time series and stuff like that. But this is a reference line that you can actually go through and set up. So when you come into the reference line, the way to set that up, you click on the chart you want it to go on, you click on style. And then here under reference lines, you can see add reference line. And I have options to add the reference line. So I can just put in, okay, I want a constant value and just say I want that value, let's just say 200. So if I do that, notice this little dotted line, a reference. And of course you can style it up however you want to do it, dashes, lines, right, dotted, solid line, weight it, however you want to do it, change the color of it. So basically it kind of gives you this nice, here's my goal and here's where we currently are. I think that's super useful, especially because we focus so much on forecasting. The idea of measuring your marketing is so that you're listening to the conversation that's happening between your users and your website, and then you're adjusting your marketing to make sure you're keeping that conversation going. It's always listening and responding. Part of this is you have to forecast what that conversation is supposed to look like. Like, okay, what's supposed to happen when they come to the homepage? How many leads am I supposed to get per day? What's my opt-in rate supposed to be? Well, this reference line can be a really good way of doing that. So I think that's a cool way. Now in here, and we don't have time to go into all of it, but you can also do calculated values. So you can actually adjust it and say, I want to see an average of what they all are or whatever, right? And so you just kind of choose one or the other but you just have that one reference line that's added in, and there you go. So actually, I take that back. I have not played with this. I should have realized that. You can do too. So I can say, okay, here's my average. This is even cooler than I thought it was. Look at this. Here's my average, and then I can say my value of 200 might be my goal. All right. So then reference line number 2. Oops. Let's go back here. Where did my reference lines go? Oh, it's clicked on my pie chart. There we go. Click that back. Go to style. Scroll down. So there's my reference line 2. I'm going to say is my goal. So here's what we're currently averaging. Here's what my goal is. Pretty cool. You can also do this for ranges, which again works really well for forecasting, where we say, oh, well, let's say in our case, technically at measurementmarketing.io, we might say, well, between 8 and 12% of the people who come to a lander will go to the cart page for that product. And so we can say 8 to 12% would be our range, 8 low range, high range, and then make sure that our conversion rates are in between there. Pretty cool way to use reference lines. So I think this one you'll use. I think the little filter thing is useful for users, specifically your clients, and maybe even yourself. If you want to filter a report without having to come in here and you want to have a quick and easy way to filter through certain things, great to do that. Again, works with metric sliders. It is a metrics filter in the metric slider section here. And this is, of course, based on metrics as well, but is a reference line charted across, which again, super useful. Now, the other one I'm actually going to bring over a little bit because I want to show you this is a thing. I doubt you're going to need it or use it. So this goes in, and I personally, for me, because it's such a weird use case, but it's cool and it could be very useful for you if you happen to have this little outlier. I'm going to bring this up because I want you to know that's a thing. We're not going to go into it because I don't actually use anything that uses this, but for a very long time, you have been able to filter data by email address. And that was one of the updates they did, I believe it was last year at this point, about a year ago. But here, the way it looks like, if you have a data set where there's data that certain email addresses can have, you can connect the dots and you can tell Data Studio, if Alan at example.com is logged in, then show him ABC and EFG. And if Mary at example.com is logged into the Data Studio report, show her only this or that. It's perfect for that sort of use case where certain people, maybe a manager of a store needs to see their results, but not all the results. And you want to have one data source of everybody's results, but you have to break it down by email, the email that they log into with Data Studio. That's how that works. That's been going on for a long time. But the problem was if you had another email, like in this case, like manager, but manager needs to see everything, right? So if there's different levels and different hierarchies of email, how do you do that? Because you cannot do this. You can't say all these different emails. You have to put, each email and what they have access to. And that's a kind of a pain. It made for very large data sources. So what they talked about here was this idea of using data blending, which if you haven't done, you will eventually, especially if you figure out conversion rates with Data Studio, and you can blend data. So what they do is they say, well, here's the key that they have access to. So basically, again, I'm not going to go into the details because I don't think it's entirely necessary that you understand how this works, just that it's possible is it. So if you're like, I don't even use emails, don't worry about it. Just know it's possible. But the way to join it was this email has access to this stuff. This email has access to this stuff. And then there was another data source that actually was the details of everything. And then you combine the dots. So I wanted you to know that was out here so you could do things like that. So, the right email sees the right stuff, even though they're getting it from only two data sources, one that defines which email should see what, and then here's the actual data source of everything. And there's a way to combine them. So just know that was a thing that was also an update that wasn't possible. So there was a way to go through and do that. And they wanted to make sure that you knew that was possible in Data Studio. But again, I think personally, for my money, reference lines. Love those. That's my feature that I really, really dig that they did. So super happy with that. What was your one thing? Hopefully it was reference lines. I think those are cool. I think those are easy to use. Maybe it's metric sliders. Who knows? Maybe it's Tag Manager. Or maybe you are finally going to go and learn the Google Analytics 2.0, the new hotness coming through. If you are, by the way, and if you're not yet a member, go to measure.tip/courses. You'll see our courses there. You can take a look at what we've got to offer. Lots of training, incredible Ask an Instructor support back there waiting for you. You send us videos and screenshots. We send video and screenshots back. Take advantage of that, especially if you are already a member. We love hearing from you. And helping you out. Next week's topic, by the way, is getting started for Workshop Wednesday. So make sure you subscribe to this channel so you are notified of the workshops as they are produced. So again, next week's workshop, getting started, beginner topic. We're going to talk about using Google Analytics to answer the question of who are my users. Now, the Measurement Marketing Toolbox, I want to make sure that if you are not yet aware, there is a free level of membership that we have aware. You just need to activate it. It's entirely yours for the taking. It includes Workshop Wednesday, so you get all these workshops each week. You've got the traffic tracking toolkit, Google Analytics report card. There's a GTM cookbook for those of you a little bit more advanced. There's ACE goals. There's things about regex back there for those of you who want to learn more about that stuff. Also, and a lot more tools. There's like 40 or 50 tools back there. It is completely free. It is our way of sort of helping build the community back there, completely free in the members area. It's something we call our Toolbox membership. So to get that, just go to measure.tips/WW. It is a free membership. We encourage everybody to at least get back there and do that so you can start building your own skills and use the resources that we have available for you. With that, we'll go ahead and bring this one to a close. You've just watched What's New? Updates and features released in June 2020. Thanks for watching this workshop, and we will see you on the next one. Take care. Hey, Vince.